Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we are going to look at the changes which are based on the feedback collected when it comes to the planned economy changes for August. Now, what is interesting about this is they actually have plans to be able to poll the whole community, and I definitely think everybody should get involved when it comes to what they want to ask. It's going to happen next week, so this will be something that they will sort out for everybody, and I think this is really awesome so we can get people's opinions. I'll give my opinion later in the video, and also we'll have a look at all of the other stuff going on. Let's get into the aviation discussion. So for aircraft, it is written, the primary and important change, according to your feedback, is the reduction of the cost of purchasing a Rank 6 aircraft, as their prices are now about the same as Rank 7 aircraft, which was introduced not so long ago. Also, prices will be changed for some vehicles, such as the MiG-17, to match the neighboring Yak-30 and LA-15s. You also noted that after the division of the French 2nd Aircraft Research Tree in two, vehicles from the F-84 series were in both new trees, and it makes sense to put them in one. However, the vehicles are noticeably different, and the second tree needs the F-84 G23RE to be completed. Therefore, the original change remains in effect. Regarding the example of your suggestions on combining the Su-7BKL aircraft with the Su-7B and the F-104A with the F-104C, we do not agree with these. At the moment, there are only two vehicles in these trees at these ranks, and they don't deserve to be grouped. So, breaking this down, the first one was about the SL cost of aircraft. Obviously, the modifications for SL got reduced dramatically, but the overall cost of it to purchase it in the first place wasn't really touched for a lot of vehicles. So now a lot of them are equal with each other, and it looks like they are at least looking into that. I mean, the way that this is written is that people have observed it, but not that they're going to change it, only that some prices will be changed for vehicles such as the MiG-17 to bring it in line with others. We'll have to see what they do with this. I personally think that Rank 6 aircraft should be cheaper than Rank 7 ones, since their RP is a lot less. When you have a look at ground vehicles, that is the case. I don't see why it would be different for aviation or any other of the game mode. Also, with the French 2nd Aircraft Research Tree, I personally didn't really see any issues with it. I think it's obviously split into like two categories. You got like the fighter line and then an attacker line. And that's really about it. You know, some people talked about how it's like domestic and foreign as well. This could be a little bit, but, you know, there's other factors going on there because, you know, there's a little bit of crossover with those two ideas. When it comes to the grouping thing, it seems like, as I said, two vehicles are not enough to be grouped. Maybe if there's 3 or 4, then the grouping would happen, and maybe in the future that will happen with certain vehicles. But with the Su-7s, there's only 2 of them in the tech tree, just like how there's 2 IL-28s, and I don't think they're going to be grouped anytime soon, unless there is a massive expansion of Rank 7, which I'm sure there will be. You know, they're still going to be putting in new high-tip vehicles. That's never going to stop. They're just going to constantly pump those out because, you know, people want to research them, and obviously they're the highest RP cost stuff. So I can see that happening. Just it seems like the criteria for grouping stuff is more than 2. So whether it's 3, whether it's 4, whatever it is, it needs to be a bit higher than the 2 that exists. I will also say the H8K that we talked about before being at rank 1, I'll be fine with that thing being ungrouped and then grouping up the other 2 H6Ks, so therefore it actually has a proper rank. That vehicle I don't think should be a rank 1 still. For ground vehicles, they're also taking some feedback. The first one is the Japanese M24 will be moved to rank 2 in future changes, similar to the placement in other game trees. Then we have the Elephant Mark II will receive a cost reduction in RP to match the price of the rest of the vehicles at that rank. The Carnarvon and the Conqueror will move to the adjacent tree in this change, which some players disagree with, but their original tree is more suited to be fitted with experimental and export vehicles. With this proximity, these 2 British vehicles would look quite alien, And then the LVR BV701 and the LVKV 9040C got your attention because of the battle ratings, which is in case that the second vehicle is lower than the first one in the research tree. Although this situation only happens with these two AA vehicles in RB game mode, in the next BR changes, the rating of these vehicles in AB will be changed, and we're ready to switch their places now. So the Japanese M24 going down, I suppose it keeps it in line with everything else, but at the same time it now loses a lot of its viability because you can't use it for challenge events, you can't use it for dailies, the second daily, and you can't use it for special tasks now. So that 4-7 lineup, which is really nice for Japan, where you would throw the Chaffee in as an extra vehicle, if you didn't have something like the Chinu 2, well, now you can't, because it's a rank 2. You could still throw it in, but it's not going to be as effective because of the whole dailies and specials thing. So that kind of sucks. That's annoying, I'm not going to lie. The Chafees were always nice little light vehicles you could run around with at rank 3, and now that they're at rank 2, they're a little bit less viable because of obviously the research losses they have, because they can't efficiently research rank 4. And also at the same time, you know, they lose the dailies and special stuff. So that sucks. The Oliphant Mark II, getting cost reduction to keep it in line with everything else, that's great. I spaded the Oliphant Mark II a little bit ago. I've got to say my experience with it wasn't great. It only started actually getting good when I got like 3/4, maybe 80% of the modifications. It just felt very large. It felt quite slow for its BR, and the only thing that it really had was the crazy round, and obviously the good thermals. And when those log behind modifications, it means that it's quite hard to use. So yeah, seeing it getting reduced so more people can get it, and also the modifications will be cheaper, this is a big positive in my opinion. The Carnarvon and Conqueror thing, I suppose with their explanation, it does make sense. I would say that if we're going to use this belief about the experimental and export vehicles, because I always thought that line was more of like a heavy tank line, which then branched into other things. Because if you look at the line, you also have the Churchills in that line, right? And you also have other heavy vehicles which are around there. So I thought that was the heavy tank line, and then eventually, obviously, when heavy tanks stop getting produced and you go into MBTs, then you end up having that. But it looks like they made the decision a while ago that that line was going to be the experimental one and export vehicles because, well, they moved the VFM5 to it, which I was very happy with because it meant it didn't have to be an end-of-the-line vehicle and meant to be a little bit easier to research. So if they're going along that way, you know, with that line, that's completely fine. Hopefully it means that that line will be bolstered more now, because if you look at the amount of vehicles in the left-hand line where the Conqueror and Carnarvon are going, it's huge. And then if you look at the second line, it is significantly smaller. So unless we get a massive update in the next few patches with more of these foreign and experiment or exports and experimental vehicles, it's just going to kind of leave a bad taste in the mouth, because of them moving them over and basically making the grind to stuff like the Challengers and the Challenger 2s harder. There was some vehicles in the files, like there was another variant of the Vickers, which was pretty much ready to go, so I'm guessing they're going to slot in, maybe in this update, maybe in the next one, and maybe some other stuff as well. So hopefully that line gets pumped in, so it does match some of the others. The LVRBV and the LVKV one makes complete sense. We've talked about before, it's good to have BR progression as you go up a tree. It can be very jarring if you have, let's say, a 4.0 vehicle and then you're researching ahead of it a 3.3 vehicle. It doesn't make any sense at all. So seeing this change is a good one. So overall, with the ground changes, the Oliphant change is good. The Conqueror and Carnarvon one kind of makes sense depending on what they do in the future. The Swedish one makes sense. The Chaffee one is very, very sad, is the way I would put it. Fleet has also got a comment by it, and I just want to take this opportunity to say how I hope posts like this show how much they are taking into account feedback. Stoner actually in the post does actually hyperlink to the post where they got the information from. So your voice does matter, it's something I've said for many years when it comes to War Thunder. There's been this narrative that Gaijin doesn't listen, they don't take feedback, they just do what they want. Hopefully posts like this and the BR changes ones that we saw before break that narrative, and I'm really glad that they're doing these now externally instead of just internally. With the Fleet one, it says you noticed that it would be better to switch the places for the Isuzu and Chidori in the Japanese Navy. Research of Chikugo to Isuzu, post-war ship, and Sionen to Chidori, ships from World War II, looks better from a historical and game perspective. So it looks like they're going to implement that change as well, just because it fits both criteria. Also, they make a comment on the plans for rewards in victory and defeat. Your feedback is divided, but we see a high level of interest in this part of the game mechanics and agree with the comment where you recommend making the survey more accessible to all players. That's what we'll do. Next week, we will prepare a more global poll for you and announce it right in the game. You'll be able to vote for the future of the mechanics together with other players of all War Thunder game modes. The results will be published at the end of next week. This is a very positive move. I generally think actually getting an opinion from the overall community is the best thing to do. One of the things we've talked about in the past is when it comes to forum communities, generally what you see is people who are highly invested in the game and will have, their certain biases. Then if you do it on a place like Reddit, then you'll have different biases. But if you collectively do everybody, then therefore that can be something which therefore that can be something which reduces those issues if you poll every single person, or at least have the chance to. Now, when it comes to my opinion on the reward changes, if you don't know what they are, basically what they are going to do with them is they are going to reduce the amount of RP, or the RP modifier, I should say, that you get for a win, and they're going to increase the RP modifier for when you have a loss. So basically, instead of the current 0.6 RP per second in a loss mission, it's going to 0.8 RP per second, whereas in wins, it's going from 1.4 RP per second in victory, and instead it's going to 1.2. So the winning bonus will still be 50%, which is very, very high compared to before, because it's a 0.4 difference. No, well, not compared to before. It's less compared to before, but it's still high because there's a 0.4 difference between them, so you are still incentivized to win. In my opinion, as a person who has a 56% win rate across all modes after playing nearly every nation and enjoying a lot of the game, I'm completely fine with this change. As somebody who is actually on the end of it, which it would negatively affect, I would get technically less RP from this change. I'm completely fine with it if it means that others are able to research a bit more and get more SL from, at least getting some more wins maybe if they try a bit harder. But mainly if they are, like, let's say a 45% win-loss player or a 48% one, if they get more RP at the end of the day, I'm completely fine with that. I don't need more RP. I'm in a situation now in War Thunder where my research, I've nearly researched out all of the ground vehicles. I'm very close to the aviation ones as well. I benefited a lot from the current system. But at the same time, I also talk to a lot of people who just want to try different things in the game. I don't see War Thunder as an ultra-competitive game. I don't see it as something where you need to win at all costs. I see it as a game where people want to play certain vehicles and have a go with them. Of course, you're going to have the competitive aspect that is still there, and you still get a 50% reward boost if you win. They've just made it a little bit easier for the people who are on the other end of things, which maybe being being affected by either bad internet, they may be affected by, using an old laptop and only getting 30 FPS, but for me, I would want them to be able to experience more of the game. Because for me, the spice of War Thunder is the variety of it. So I am completely fine with this change. I will be voting for this change. And the reason is because of the fact I just would like to see more people experience more things. The guys who are already winning enough, they are already doing very well. The win bonus is still there. It's still very large. You'll still get a ton out of it. You can still try and do your competitive stuff, and you can even branch out and do the tournament things and all of those different things. There is plenty of stuff in the game for you, right? And research wise, you're still getting a big bonus. But for the other people who just want to enjoy the game and try it, and maybe, every so often play really hard, but most of the time just want to play with either some friends, have a bit of fun, or maybe they're not the most skilled at the game, I still want them to be able to actually experience the vast majority of stuff in the game like I have, because for me it's been a wonderful experience and I want to open that up to more people. I disagree with the arguments that because they are lowering rewards from 1.4 to 1.2, there's going to be a lot of people who are disincentivized to win. You still have a 0.4 difference. You still get 50% more winning bonus by winning. That is still a huge amount. If you're not incentivized by that, or if you don't have the competitive drive because they're dropping it by a little bit of a percentage, then I don't know what to say. Maybe your drive isn't there in the first place. But that is generally my opinion on these things. I will be voting to change this. Obviously, make up your own mind. Make sure to discuss it with other people. But it is very important that you do vote in this poll, which will be available next week when it comes to the game. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank BRFC, Swollen Ostrich, Teddy, John Ryman, Universe A, Conte Baraka, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Lafouche, Barine, and Samuel Schlick for supporting the channel.